The information provided on Terminal Addiction Podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified provider with any questions you might have regarding medical or mental health condition. Never disregard professional advice or delay seeking it because of something you heard on this podcast. The views and opinions expressed by the guests, the hosts, are their own, and they do not necessarily reflect those of any affiliated organization or institutions. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we make no guarantee regarding the completeness, reliability, or applicability of the content discussed. Listening to this podcast does not establish provider-patient relationship. If you're experiencing a medical emergency or mental health crisis, please contact emergency services or crisis line immediately.
Welcome back to another episode of Terminal Addiction Podcast. This is Doug H.
And I'm Paul B.
How you been, Paul?
You know what? I've been doing okay.
That's good.
I changed my name. I am now RNP. I decided I needed a new hip hop name or something.
RNP?
Yeah, for Registered Nurse Paul.
I like it. I think it's going to catch on.
Yeah, I think so.
No more big dog. No more old dog. Now we're just RNP.
RNP.
Better than RIP, I suppose. So. Paul, while you were gone, you were doing some service work, and I appreciate you, contributing to helping out our fellow recovering folks. I had the opportunity to sit down and conduct a really cool interview with an artist that I've become kind of enamored with his work. His name's Shawn Coss, ShawnCoss, no R, so it's not Shawn Cross, it's Shawn Coss, COSS, and he does a lot of like really dark, but also inspirational artwork related to some things in the mental health world. He worked himself as a nurse in the emergency room up in Akron, Ohio, for about 11 years. And he's always done art as a passion, and he did some cool stuff with a online cartoon called Cyanide and Happiness, and I thought you'd appreciate that name.
Absolutely.
And then he also has a clothing company that he's part of called Any Means Necessary, and you can check them out at anymeansnecessary, all one word.com. And then you can also check out Shawn's artwork at shawncossart.com, ShawnCossart.com. So with a little more from us, unless you got something for us, Paul.
Nope, that's it.
You been doing all right, though?
Been doing okay.
Good. I think this is the first time you'll have heard this interview all the way through. So I hope you like it. But I had a great time talking with Shawn. I've met him a couple of times at conventions and stuff. I've been following his artwork for probably 5 or 6 years. I think I stumbled upon it during COVID. And it's just always something that's really spoke to me. He's got a lot of really interesting visuals, so I really encourage everybody to check out Shawn Coss, ShawnCoss, and go down that rabbit hole and enjoy, everybody.
Thanks.
And welcome back to another episode of Terminal Addiction. My name is Doug H., and I am sort of flying solo today. Paul B., our co-host, had to step up and do some service work at the 12-step group today, so it's just me, but I am not alone. I am very honored to have a guest with me today, somebody whose artwork I have been, diving into over the last few years, and somebody who I think is a good advocate for people in the mental health recovery world. His name is Shawn Coss, and Shawn's an artist, and Shawn's got a whole lot of stuff that he and I are going to talk about today. But I just want to welcome to the Terminal Addiction Podcast, Shawn Coss. How you doing, Shawn?
I am doing fantastic.
That's good. So just a little background. I found your stuff back in like 2020, 2021 during COVID. And it's a little on the dark side, but that typically speaks to me. I had somebody tell me one time, they said, you're attracted to the darkness because you are the light. And I kind of felt that same thing through some of your artwork. So I just want to hear a little bit about your backstory here. Your inspiration getting into doing artwork to start with, but then how'd you get into doing the artwork that you're doing now?
Okay. So are we talking like complete bio from the beginning,
I mean, we
or
can build a rough timeline here. Yeah, let's
okay?
just kind of figure out how did we get here today? So,
All
but
right. Well, so I was born back in the 80s. I was born over in the UK. My dad was in the Air Force, military brat. So we lived on base for a couple years. Then eventually moved back to the States in Maine, another military base there. Um, lived there for a couple years until I feel like um, that base ended up shutting down. So we ended up moving to West Virginia, where most of my family's all kind of originated from. A couple years there, couldn't my parents couldn't really like make ends meet. My mom was working a couple different jobs. My dad was working construction on top of like doing some military like office work, but we just could not get ahead. So we ended up moving to Ohio back when I was maybe 7 or 8. My parents took on a janitorial business from my great uncle, along with his like I think it was like $400,000 or $500,000 of debt, and that was kind of the caveat. It's like you can have my business, but you have to take all my debt too. But we were on such like death's doorstep in terms of like finances. We lived in a trailer in West Virginia that was like gifted to us. Um, living on food stamps. Salvation Army would have to have the Santa come to our house and bring us gifts. We were so poor that we didn't have toys open for Christmas, so we would have to wrap toys that we'd already had. So we had something to open on Christmas. So like fucking Tiny Tim shit. Uh, Once we moved to Ohio, it's my childhood's pretty much like I guess a lot of other people's childhood. Um, my mom kind of raised me on a bunch of horror as a young child, so that probably explains a lot of why I do the work that I do now.
sure.
My bedtime stories were like Stephen King books. The movies we'd watch is like Alien, The Fly, stuff like that. So like instead of watching stuff like Babar or Looney Tunes, it was Pet Cemetery, The Stand, and stuff like that.
Nice. Speaking my language now.
Right, right. So yeah, no, I ended up finding a sketchbook of my dad's back when he used to when he was still in the military. He had all these drawings of like Beetle Bailey, which is like an old comic strip that a
Hmm.
lot of people don't know about anymore. A lot of like animal life drawings. Like he's really good at realism. I was like, oh shit, my dad's an artist, or at least he was. And I wonder if I could be an artist, So I start doodling. I started drawing dinosaurs, and I sucked. I was a real young kid. Um, Progressed into like video game, fan art and stuff like that. Uh, but just like through my high school career, I drew. I drew all the time. I wasn't the popular kid. I was a goth kid. Wore all black. Lipstick, eyeliner, fishnets, all that stuff, and while kids were partying and staying out late and getting in trouble, I just stayed at home and I just kept drawing because that was just my passion. I was so tired of like the boringness of the world, at least from where I was. I wanted to create stuff that wasn't real or like was in my mind. So that kind of like led me into that journey. A couple years later, still poor as shit. It's pretty much poor as shit until I think I was like 27, 28 years old. You know, Me and my wife, worked multiple jobs just to get, like make ends meet. And eventually I started getting was it comics and stuff like that, and like wanting to get in animation, but I sucked at it, had no patience for it. And then my friends were like, "Why don't you just go into nursing? Like you're a weirdo. You like weird
Right.
medical shit. So like
Sure.
just go do nursing. Like it pays well, and then you can just do art on the side." So I went to nursing school, and at the same time, I had met a guy named by the name of Chris Wilson through MySpace. He had DM'd me saying that he was a huge fan of my dark art. He's also one of the creators of this massive online cartoon and comic called Cyanide Happiness. And I was a huge fan of his stuff. So I was completely blown away that this guy was even reaching out to me. And this was through MySpace because he found me on DeviantArt. And he just started sharing my work, and I was getting like all these new eyes on my stuff. So I was like, I don't know how to handle this. Like people are actually liking my work. And he ended up inviting me out to Colorado just to like hang out. And I'd never flown anywhere outside of like as a kid, but like I'd never traveled by myself. So I was the first, I scrounged up a couple $100 to fly one way out there. Completely forgot to book my flight back. I had $80 on me, and that's the money I had for like a week. But at the end of that trip, he ended up hiring me into Cyanide Happiness for merchandise and stuff like that.
Awesome.
So I'm kind of giving you the whole spiel. So like,
yeah. No, I love hearing it.
So he ends up hiring me to do merchandise. I do, a couple shirt designs, but I was like, dude, I want to be a part of like the cartoons and stuff like that. So, he's like, do you have any experience in like environment designs for cartoons? I'm like, yeah, sure. I did not. I had zero idea.
Of course.
I was like, what program?
Make it.
Yeah, I was like, what program do you use? And he goes, oh, we use Adobe, or it wasn't Adobe at that point, but it was Flash.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent the next week just researching as much as I could about Flash and figuring it out. And I ended up doing some backgrounds. I sent it to him. He's like, holy shit, like you do know this. I'm like, yeah, totally know this. 100%. I did not just learn this in a week. So I started doing backgrounds for them, then character design, and then I started going to a bunch of these Comic-Con shows with them and being an improv sketch artist along with them. So it really made me kind of think on my feet, because you're like drawing in front of people and you're trying to make them laugh. And I'm not a comedian, at least in that sense, but I was very good at like making very vulgar artwork that would make people laugh.
Sure.
But that time I realized, holy shit, there is a path for art. I grew up obviously in West Virginia, Ohio, and at that time, in the Midwest and the East, like the idea of being an artist, an actor, a content creator,
Sure.
wasn't a thing. Here in Ohio, you go to nursing school or you go to business school. Those are really like the two main things you go to college for. And if you're in business school, you end up making a bunch of failed businesses. You end up just being a manager somewhere at some restaurant, or a nurse, and you go fucking wipe ass and save lives at hospitals. So I got exposure to like San Diego Comic-Con. Like my first convention ever was C2E2 in Chicago, which was like massive. I was like, holy shit, this is a huge ass thing. And I'm seeing all these awesome artists, a lot of art that's like mine. I'm like, oh my God, like this is a thing. And then my second show ever was San Diego Comic-Con. So that's like the mecca of like Comic-Cons. So I go there and I'm just like, I'm floored. I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want to be an artist that goes to these shows and people see my work. At that same time, I just graduated my RN, working, full time doing that. But then I was also working full time with CNH. And then I met. Sorry, this is a long bio.
No, you're
Holy
good,
shit!
man.
Do we need to break this up? Okay.
No, we're good.
You're getting the whole fucking thing.
That's what I want. I want to introduce people to you. I think you're one of those that's going to touch a lot of our audience, and I just want to make sure that they get to know who you are.
They're getting to know everything. So
that's good. That's good. So am I.
So during nursing CNH, I met this guy at a rock show. It was my first art show. There was a band that we were mutually fans of. And they're like, hey, you want to have an art show here? So I brought a bunch of like, 8.5 by 11s framed and sold out of everything in like one night. I made like $500. I was like, holy shit, this is the most money I've ever seen in my life. And this guy came up with this huge puffer jacket, this straight brim hat, just looking like a thug. And he just goes, hey man, my name's Michael Nemitz. I'm a rapper. My name's Assume. I want an album cover. And I'm just like, yeah, sure, Eminem, gotcha. So I kind of just blew him off. But he kind of kept at me, and we ended up becoming like really good friends through like our love of like video games and watching the UFC and then music. So I ended up designing an album cover for him for like $60, which he completely hosed me. And after he paid me, he just goes, "Man, you're doing this wrong. Like you can make so much more money doing art." Um, as long as he didn't have to pay for it. So a couple years of our friendship go by, and he works at Time Warner Cable. I'm doing the whole nursing thing, and he's hitting me up. He's like, "Hey man, I got this great idea. We should start a clothing brand." And my first answer was, "Fuck that," because I had tried 3 different clothing brands on my own, but it was just taking my artwork, slapping on a shirt, and it was called like Strangers with Candy was like the name of the brand. And I just couldn't get it going. And then I was also in bands, like I was a singer for a lot of these like local metal bands, and I always had to front all this money for like our merch, our album recordings, all this stuff. I just thought Mike was another guy who was just trying to use me for money that I barely had to begin with. And he's sitting on the side of a road in his work van, and he calls me and goes, "Dude, he's like, we should make a clothing brand because there's really not a brand out there that does dark art and like streetwear, at least at the time, because this was like in 2012. Now it's all over the place. But I was like, I don't know, man, like maybe like what would we call it?" And he's just like, "I think we should call it Any Means Necessary because I got to do whatever I can to get the fuck out of this van, and you got to get out of what you're doing because I know you're not happy." And he was right. You know, I loved working with CNH because I was getting to do art, but it wasn't my work. The nursing I was great at. I loved like the technical side of nursing, but the being beat down every day from people and their family members who just don't understand like the process of like an emergency room, stuff like that was just, it wears on you psychologically.
Sure.
And in 2016, when I was in the midst of the ER, the local mental health hospital down the street, St. Thomas, which is also the original location of Alcoholics Anonymous. They ended up shutting their ER down, so we started getting a lot of those patients. So these patients with crisis, borderline personality disorder, hallucinations, suicidal ideations, all these people were coming in droves to our hospital. And so I was getting to see this stuff firsthand. And at the time, I was dealing with my own just, I felt like I was having a mental breakdown. Like my anxiety was through the roof. I was having panic attacks. I was battling like really bad depression, unmedicated and slightly undiagnosed ADHD. And so I was trying to figure out what the fuck was happening to me. And so I was looking for prompts for that year's Inktober, which for those who don't know, October every year, Jake Parker started it called Inktober. He gives you 31 prompts so that every day you draw a new piece in ink. And it's supposed to kind of help you get your creative juices flowing. I don't like following fucking rules. So I was like, fuck that. I don't want to do any of this shit. And so someone had suggested, why don't you do mental health from the eyes of a schizophrenic, which makes no fucking sense. Like, I think they just put the schizophrenic in there just to make it edgy. I don't know, but like the mental health part, like, was intriguing to me because when I was in nursing school, before nursing, I was going to go into psychology. Like that was super intriguing to me. I was always interested in like brain chemistry and all that stuff. So my first piece I'd drawn was borderline personality disorder. That one was super intriguing to me. I had had a couple different patients with that behavior, and I was very intrigued by like just their thought process, their manipulation, and like all these like just symptoms that they experience. And then from there, I did general depressive disorder, ADHD, and bipolar. I posted them online. You know, I did one, you know, Inktober day 1, 2, 3. I called it Inktober illness. I wanted to have my own name, but let people know it's part of Inktober. So I put those first 4 up, and I wake up the next day, and my phone's just got all these fucking notifications on it. I'm like, what is going on with my phone? And I'm thinking, okay, did a war break out? Did something go wrong? And I look up my
Sure.
my Instagram page. At the time I had like maybe 20 or 30,000 followers
Okay.
through CNH and just through like my work. And then on Facebook I had I think like 20,000 followers. Well, 4 days in, I'm at 120,000 followers on
Wow.
Instagram and like probably 180,000 on Facebook. I'm like,
Wow.
what the fuck's happening? And I'm seeing all these comments going, fuck you. You're exploiting mental health. This is garbage. I'm like, what is happening? Because I wasn't used to uh, negative comments. My
Sure.
fans were just, they're fans of my work. But
Uh-huh.
now I went viral, so everyone's seeing my work. People who don't even know who I am, not fans of mine. Then I had uh, every fucking news outlet, online zine reach out to me and just say like, "Hey, we want to interview you and talk about this stuff." And so I kept going with it all 31 days, and people were just going like, "We need these as a book. We need these as prints." And my business partner was like, "We should put a little booklet out." So we did. Sold fucking I don't know how many copies, like an insane amount of copies. Did like 60K in like 2 days.
Good for
Um,
you.
and so I felt guilty. So I was like, we got to take some of this money and donate it. So we took 10K of it and donated it to the Treatment Advocacy Center of Mental Health down in Georgia. That's one that um, Robin Williams' widow said like they use 100% of it. So it doesn't go to CEOs or anything like that. And then from there, I just became the mental health guy.
That's not a bad label to have.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so your stuff came to me. I just started seeing it when I was, locked down during early COVID, 2020, 21. And it just spoke to me. And then saw that you had, the book out and that you were doing the prints and all that kind of stuff. And so I just kind of did a deep dive and learned a little bit about you and found out, you had background in nursing, that you had these ties to the mental health. I didn't know the whole story about how it kind of just falls into place like most things in life tend to do. But yeah, your stuff really spoke to me, and I've been trying to pass your stuff around to friends of mine who I think benefit from seeing somebody who can put thoughts, feelings, and emotions into a visual and into a visual representation. And so I've got some of your stuff pulled up here on my iPad, and it's dark but it's not scary. It's almost comforting in my perceptions of it. And some of the things that you talk about, I think are just very real. I think it's things that people are afraid to talk about. But if you can throw some things together in a visual sense, I think it comforts the discomforted and it disturbs the comfortable, which is kind of a paradox there. But so your background in mental health, personally and professionally, that was sort of your avenue into doing this stuff.
Yeah, so it wasn't like intentional. I wasn't planning it, you know.
Sure.
It just kind of like fell into it. Obviously with nursing, those who are in the medical field, especially in the emergency room, understand the levels of stress that we're put under at any given time. And there's really there's nights where there's no break. You don't
Right.
get like most jobs you get a break. You have a half hour lunch break, you get to go chill. Nursing's a little different, if it's a shit show, dude, you ain't eating today, or
Mm-hmm.
you're snacking in between rooms. And so like uh I found out from a couple of therapists that they're really starting to look into PTSD for medical staff.
Yeah.
Because you always hear about it with military and then sexual assault people, or like people who've had some type of
Mm-hmm.
trauma with their you know parents or something, but they never really talked about like the medical field. Like nurses have always been kind of like the soldiers in the medical world, and but there's no like, there's no treatment for it. There's like, hey, that's just the gig, man. Like, you're coming into a shit show, just fucking, So we medicate with, alcohol and, just sleepless nights, caffeine pills and stuff like that, just to keep going.
Sure.
And it was really starting to wear on me. My wife had told me, uh, that once I had become a nurse, like I just became so cold and just angry all the time. And, I would tell her, like, when I come home from a bad day at work and you have a bad day at work, like they're vastly different. Like a
Yeah.
bad day at work in the office is like, man, the fucking uh copier jammed, I couldn't get my papers printed. When I have a bad day, people died,
Yeah.
kids come in overdosing and we can't save them and they're dead and we have to see their parents watch their kid be taken away from them from something that could have been prevented, or someone comes in, you know bleeding out and we're just trying to save them. So it's like my bad day was much different than like another person's bad day. And it was always felt weird to, like, I never wanted to be like, well, mine's worse, but like it's
No.
just different levels. Like I have to compartmentalize that trauma that I saw that day somewhere in the back of my mind, just like I can't deal with that right now. But the problem is when you're a nurse, doctor as well, respiratory therapists, all of them, there's never really a time to process it. You just keep shoving it in the back.
Sure.
And eventually it starts creeping out in other ways subconsciously through your anger, through your anxiety, and all that stuff. And I really like, once I put those couple pieces out and I saw how much it resonated with so many people, I was like, this is important. This is my
Hmm.
opportunity that I can help more people this way, as an artist, bringing awareness to mental health rather than a nurse with 4 patients, fluctuating around there. Now, am I saving lives the same way? No, but there are people who are like, I was ready to take my life until I saw this imagery and I
Hmm.
felt I felt seen. Now the cynic in me feels like they're all lying to me and they're like, you're just saying that just to kind of like tug at my strings or whatever. Because it's weird to be told that something that you created prevented someone from ending their life. Like that's
Yeah.
heavy. That's super heavy as well. And I get messages like that, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40 a week maybe. Like, so I still have to like bear that burden of them telling me that, and then I carry it with me. Not their intention, but
Mm-mm.
if you're telling me all this stuff, like I've had people tell me about all their sexual assault in graphic detail of like
Hmm.
a relative. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this information. And now I'm reading it and now it's in me and I have to go about my day now, you know? Uh,
Yeah.
so like I lost track of the question,
That's okay.
but
No, no,
we're just
we're
kind of, I
touching
just
on
kind of go with it. But yeah, I just felt that mental health wasn't being represented correctly,
it. Hmm.
even for me, because I couldn't find stuff that made me relate to it. And I was like, dude, like depression isn't abstract art to me. It's not, every time I see like mental health artwork, it's always this most abstract looking thing and it's so messy. And maybe that is how they feel, but like I wasn't able to like connect with that.
Sure.
I needed a a being, an enemy, an entity to pin this on. So when I drew these, people call them demons, like they're not really demons. They're just, it's my style of artwork. But if you're completely new to my work, it looks like demonic artwork or monsters. I was like, but it's not meant to be like you have anxiety, you're a monster. It's more of
Yeah.
like this is the personification of the behavior that you have, of the thing that you have to battle with. Uh
Hmm.
so yeah. Sorry.
No. This is exactly the kind of stuff I was hoping to get to, because working as a counselor in a treatment center, I hear about the same kinds of things: people's traumas, their abuse, their isolation, their neglect, and people don't know what to do with it, and so addicts and alcoholics just pour drugs and alcohol on top of it.
Right.
And I was lucky enough. The facility I work at, we have a detox psych unit, and so I get to hear about, see about, read about the patients over there, and there is this compassion fatigue that happens with a lot of the nurses over there and the social workers. And then last year, for part of the school project, I was lucky enough to get over to our ER and shadow social workers for like 4 or 5 months. And so I got to kind of have a little peek behind the curtain and to see how much this stuff wears on the patients, their families, but also the staff members. And that's a hard thing to do. I know, myself, I'm in therapy. I work a 12-step program. I've got a great sponsor. I've got really good friends, but there's still this part of it that just feels like it sticks to me at the end of the day. Almost like I used to I worked in restaurants at one point, and you go home after a long day, and that smell is just sort of baked into your clothes. And I feel that when I work with difficult patients, or we have a tough group, that I don't feel like I'm getting through to some people. And then every now and again, like you were talking about, I meet with a family member, or I see somebody, 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road after treatment, and they say stuff like, you saved my life. And that's hard for me to internalize, because I've got this eternal pessimistic outlook on a lot of things. And I've got this imposter syndrome where I don't feel like I'm ever good enough. I don't feel like I'm ever living up to mine, let alone everyone else's expectations. So then to hear that stuff is hard to process. But at the same time, that's why I got into doing what I'm doing, because people were telling me that I was good at this, and that I had a way to work with newcomers, new people in early sobriety, and I could find a way to not dumb it down, but make it relatable. And I think that's one of the things that I really felt in your artwork is I'm looking at some of this stuff right now, and it's so complex, but it's so simple. I'm looking at I've got one up right now. It's the little girl and the bear with the rage.
Yeah.
And that one makes so much sense to me. I look at the one with the smiley face that you have, and it's the hardest kind of sadness is not being able to explain why.
Right.
And so it's just these little bite-sized things that I think you're able to take and put into a visual form, that for me just really like spoke out, and so, wow, that's something that I can understand, and that's something that I've shown your work to other counselors, other people, other nurses, just other people I know that struggle or deal with mental health, and they go, wow, it's so cool to see somebody who's able to put this stuff into a visual form that they can understand. There's one, and it's on a bright yellow background, and it's like two hands holding a smile, and it says, try to be happy. And it's like, I am trying. And for me, it's like, I still take home a lot of the stuff with me at the end of the day. And I used to do a lot of art. I used to do a lot of writing. I used to do a lot of journaling. And just for whatever reasons, it's hard for me to dive back into that. But then to see your stuff is almost inspiring to me to want to get back out there and figure out how I can get this stuff out. And your ability to take something as complex as like borderline personality or generalized anxiety or bipolar, and to put it down so that it's understandable and relatable. My question for you on this next part is it just kind of one and done, or do you do like 5, 6, 7 drafts of something and have a variety to pick from? How does that process work for you?
In terms of like for like bipolar, like do I just do like one piece and move on kind of thing?
Sure, yeah.
So initially when I first started in 2016, it was just one piece of imagery for each behavior. just to kind of keep up with the Inktober series. And but then when I did series 2 in 2018, I tried to dive into like a different part of that behavior and a different symptom. But at the time, I was still learning a lot about the behaviors. So like when I came up with the third book this year, I had so many years to like really research. And the one that I felt like I had the hardest time with originally was the OCD one when I first did it. And then my business partner has been going through a lot of therapy and realizes he's been diagnosed with OCD, ADHD, and PTSD. But like his OCD is very presented in the intrusive thoughts. And then this one where it's like he doesn't sleep well because he's always exhausted because his brain's always going. So he'll say, if we're having a conversation like you and I, he'll say something, and then depending on how you respond, he'll have 20 to 30 different responses, and he'll already plan out the whole conversation before it happens. And he knows, and he says, like, I can never be wrong because I know every aspect. I'm like, that's not how that works. But, I always sound like, no, you are wrong. It's just your brain has to keep, coming up with all these different viewpoints. But I was like, that's exhausting. I couldn't imagine my brain having to come up with every fucking possible scenario. I'm very impulsive. I have a lot of impulse issues. So like if I want to buy this whatever, I just go buy it.
Sure.
He will spend 6 months researching every possible thing that he could do different. What's the cheapest route? How can he get a rebate? Like, and then at the end of 6 months, he'll finally buy the thing. And I'm like, dude, just fucking buy it. And he goes, no, man. I was like, I can't just do that. Like his brain will just not allow him. So I learned a lot about that one. So with the third book, some of the pieces I did a couple different designs for it. The intrusive thoughts part, the anxiety of it. Cause like a lot of these behaviors I've learned over the years of like, they kind of intertwine with each other. So like, and I have a lot of people who are like, oh, can you do like they'll come at me and they'll be like, I have these 6 behaviors. Draw me a piece. And I'm like, no. No. Like, how the fuck am I supposed to take 6 behaviors and put them into one image? That makes zero fucking sense, Sure. But actually a interesting concept that my buddy Tyler came up with, who was at Indy was it last weekend? Was that the show?
I think so. Yeah.
He gets that to another extent of like, he does commissions and he goes, I think people think in movie format. So they have like these different scenes they want because they're seeing it play out in their head as a film, but like it doesn't translate to a piece of artwork. So if this person's like, well, during my manic episodes, this happens, but during my down episodes, this happens, but with my bipolar or my borderline personality, this happens. I'm like, well, you're showing scenes.
Sure.
Like you can't put that all just into one image. It's going to look like a fucking shit show, which maybe that, that's what we are.
Sometimes.
So some of them I try to do a couple different versions. And there's some behaviors where I'm like, I've like Capgras delusion. I can only do that so many different ways. So I've done it 3 different times, but it's literally the same style, just better artwork as I've gotten better. So sometimes I'm just like, I've done all I can with this piece. And not to mention, not some people have Capgras delusion, so it's like, like that's not a common one as a like borderline personality or bipolar is. And so those ones I'll try and work more like different variations. But now I don't necessarily do pieces focused on the actual, like the diagnosis, but more just the symptoms. So a lot of my stuff now is focused on like that sadness, the panic, the anxiety, and stuff like that, as opposed to like this is ADHD kind of thing.
So yeah, and that's kind of what I was asking for, because I'm looking here at one, and it's the bipolar one, and it's like the teeter totter.
Oh yeah.
And it looks, just looking at it, it's like it's so simple, but like that is such a perfect representation of the up and down that comes with having that diagnosis. And there's one on here, and it's the buried behavior,
Yep.
and it's just all these rocks, and they kind of create this cave where you see the person like huddled and hiding. And it's just such a well thought out visual representation of that. And the ideas that you get through with your four horsemen that you put together. And I thought it was cool that you did, the four different, death, pestilence, war, did
Yep.
those all individually rather than trying to encompass them all in one drawing. So being able to separate them and do it that way is just super cool for me. To see you put together these different ideas and thoughts and concepts. I'm just scrolling through. There's some Hunter S. Thompson stuff in there. There's some Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. I think you did a Marvin the Martian. So I mean, it's outside, but it still has a really cool feel to it. And I see other people's stuff that's similar, but yours just has this step above, and I don't know really how to explain that. But your stuff is
I don't
just
either. I don't know how
your
to
stuff
explain
is
it.
just your stuff is just different, man. And
It's weird because like I look at so many artists, I'm like, there are so much better artists than me. And like when I do these shows, I'll talk to the other artists and like, how the weekend go? And they're like, it did okay. And I'm like, shit, I did fucking like, why are people coming to my booth and not their booth? I look at my work and I go, it's okay. Like it's very simple. Uh, it's somewhat minimal, even though I do a lot of line work in it. But like, there's artists out there that just absolutely fucking crush me in terms of like skill and messaging, and I don't know um, why mine is put above theirs in some sense. And it's hard because I'll do pieces now, and I feel like I've been drawing since I was 6 or 7 years old, but like I don't really feel like I've grown. And I start going through this whole thing like, well, maybe it's because I'm stuck in this like mental health, like these weird lanky figures, but that's what I'm known for, and that's what's helping people. And so I always have this internal battle of like, I want to do fucking like some wild, super elaborate shit, but it doesn't resonate with people. Like when I do it, like I like to like people. I think people don't realize that I can be very technical with my artwork and I can do very like elaborate pieces, but they just don't give a shit. It's kind of like what it
sure.
is.
Well,
They
one of my
go
one of my
ahead, sorry.
favorite quotes is from Pablo Picasso, and it says, "It took me 4 years to learn to paint like Raphael, but a lifetime to paint like a child."
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, part of your stuff is this. I think you're still developing your style. I think there's this drive to just be a little bit better. And so I don't know that there's any complacency in any of your stuff. And to see, how it keeps coming out, and the books and the clothing and all that kind of stuff. I think it's just your drive to just maybe be better. I know that's my drive, because when people say, I like the way you give lectures. I like the way you do groups. I like the way you do individuals. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just showed up one day and nobody's told me to leave yet. And so sometimes it's just that drive to keep adding and learning and being able to, in my head, not in anybody else's, but just live up to my expectations.
right.
And so, how did you decide on the books? Because I know you've got the second dose, and then this new one is called the final dose.
Yep.
How do you decide when it's time to put out a book? Do you just have 100 prints and you're ready to go, or?
No, so the third book kind of came out of my business partner saying like, "Hey man, like think you should maybe put out a new book. Like you've learned so much more about mental health. You know, we're kind of running the tales of the 2016, 2018 book." Um, and so yeah, I just said, "Yeah, you're right. I probably should." But like there's really no plan. Like I always tell people like I'm not the artist type in terms of
Okay.
like I don't it's such a weird thing. Like I tell people like I don't think like an artist. Like there's a lot of artists out there that are like they just bleed art and like they're artistic and all this stuff and they have all these like grand ideas and I don't think in that way. Mine's more of like do I want to like like pursue this? I want to do a another tarot deck. I want to do another oracle. I want to do an oracle deck. I want to do a kids book for mental health.
Awesome.
But it's like I don't have any plans on when I'm going to do it. They're just like in my head of like, yeah, I'll get to it eventually. The kids book might come out for another 10 years. I don't know. It could come out next year.
Sure.
Who knows? But there's no timeline. It was just him bringing it up to me. I was like, you know what? You're right. It has been 10 years since I've done like a series on mental health again. So maybe it's time. And he was like, there's so much we've learned in 10 years,
Uh-huh.
like mental health wise. He's like, I think we should like, you should really push at it. And so I took like 4 or 5 months, just did what I did last time. I started researching, I started reaching out to a lot of my therapist friends for case studies, you know, trying to find updated information on like nim.org and stuff like that, trying to see if there's been any changes, any adjustments. Obviously back then I think autism was considered like a neurological disorder. And now it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, it's no longer considered that, you know? Um, and so I was like, you know what? I think you're right. It's time. And I did a couple pieces. But what's interesting was the excitement for it wasn't there like it was for the first one. So
Okay.
like my fans were happy it was coming out, but it didn't have that like massive like holy shit, yes, finally. And it could just be that people are just like obviously political climate is very weird, the world's weird, and there's
Sure.
some people who are like they want to stop talking about mental health because they're like, wow, we're too open about this shit. Like stop being pansies, all that stuff. So it's like I almost see this like aversion, like they're reverting back to like let's just put it back under the rug. Let's not talk about it anymore. Back in 2016, 2017, that's when like athletes were starting to come out and talk about it. Kevin Love was talking about his anxiety and his eating disorders before games. Marshawn Lynch from the Seattle Seahawks was talking about his struggles. And like, it was like, holy shit, these super successful, rich people that we just assume would have everything going for them are struggling too. And then it
Mm-hmm.
became this, like, it was okay to talk about it. But then I think there was a shift to where there's people that are like they enjoy talking about how much mental health they have. Like, oh, I have this, and this, like they're collecting Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't talk about my mental health a lot because I don't feel like I need to. I don't know the
Sure.
people that are fans of my work, and there's a certain level of privacy I like to keep with myself. But the flip side to that is I'll have people attack me going, you don't even have mental health. I'm like, well, I do. They're like, well, what is it? I was like, why do I have to tell you?
Sure.
Like, why do I need to tell you my
Sure.
personal information just to prove to you that, I'm not like exploiting this? Um, so I can also understand why people are like I'm pulling back from talking about my mental health because it's no one's business to know what I struggle with unless I'm willing to talk about it. But there's so many people who are like, that's their life, is they just like, I love to talk about, I have this, and this happened to me. I'm like, okay, cool. But like, why are you wearing that as a badge of honor? Last time
Mm-hmm.
I checked, having anxiety and depression fucking sucks.
It
So why
does.
the
It
fuck am I
does.
gonna brag about it?
It
Like,
does.
it's a weird, and maybe it's a defense mechanism. I don't know. Um, but even that's caused me to even like pull back a little bit from it. Cause I'm like, I'm not, I didn't create this so people can be like, oh, I got this, I got this, I got that. And that happens at shows all the time. They'll flip through a book, and it's a younger generation too. And they'll say, oh, yeah, I have that. I have that. I'm like, no, you don't. Stop. Like,
No.
do you have a therapist? Do you have a psychiatrist? Do you have a doctor? Like, are you diagnosed with this stuff, or are you just saying you have it? And that creates a whole other slew of problems. Um, so
And
yeah, there's,
go ahead.
I'll say, but with the third book, I feel like maybe people are almost like tired of talking about it in a way, but it's not going to, but I still feel like it still needs to be that conversation. So when people are ready
Absolutely.
to have that conversation again, the books are there. The new book
Yeah.
is there. So, maybe a couple years from now, we're going to start being more open again, talking about it and being able to tell each other, like our family members, our loved ones, that like, hey, I'm struggling. Here's a book I had. This is how I'm feeling, because I have such a hard way of putting this into words.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
That's what I really keep going back to your stuff about is I can look at something and it just eases some tension inside of myself because I see that at least somebody else understands it, and if somebody else understands it, then how many other people understand it? And so
right,
that's been and it is it's a good outlook that it's just put this stuff out there and it's there when people are ready for it. And so, I like I said, I've fallen in love with your stuff, man, and I'm really glad I got the opportunity to meet you a couple of times at the Columbus Oddities Expo. We were able to set this up, man. It's been so cool to get to talk to you and get to know you
yeah,
a
man.
little bit more as a person. I just want to throw this out there. Just a couple of the websites. There's ShawnCossArt.com, and that's ShawnCossArt.com. And
No
that's
R.
no R?
No R.
No,
You didn't
no,
put an
not the
R in it, but
cross.
everyone always puts Shawn Cross.
No, COSS. And when we post this and start putting this one up, I'll make sure that we put out accurate website information and artist information. And then the other one is anymeansnecessary.com. And that's any means necessary, no spaces, no hyphens, no dots, anymeansnecessary.com. And that's where you can find links to the clothing as well as the artwork. But Shawn, I really do appreciate you coming on and spending some time talking with me. And I really do feel like you're going to get through to some of our listeners and just the intersection between mental health and chemical dependency. And I'm just seeing, longer I work in this field, just this incredible overlap. Very rarely does somebody come in without some of one and some of the other, and
Right,
to just
right.
be learning how much the underlying stuff really does play into people struggling to get clean and sober. Because I think people quit drinking, quit using, and then they still have all this stuff and they don't know what to do with it. And so we're big advocates of therapy and counseling and medication management if that's what somebody needs to stabilize and find a baseline where they can operate from. So man, I'm just so grateful that we were able to do this today. Thank you for setting aside some time.
Yeah, man.
Anything that you want to say on the way out here?
Uh, I would say with how the fucking world is going right now, that those of us that are feeling like this dark cloud is never going to go fucking away and that like there's no end in sight, just stick it out. You know, it might get worse, but it might get better. So like it can't, the quote from the Crow is it can't rain all the time. Feels like it is right now. But I always just tell people like, just stick around a little bit longer. There was a quote that I don't even know if I made it up or I heard it somewhere else, but I can't remember because I've been saying it for so long. But the quote is, the world is brighter with you in it. So stay a little longer and keep shining, which sounds kind of corny, but I feel like that's super important because I think people get caught too much in the darkness at like right now, and they don't see they can't see through it. But there's always like that pinlight of light that's like letting you know, like, hey, there is something on the other side you can get to. You can get through this. You can get past this darkness. So for those of us who are struggling and we're just like, dude, this fucking world is ending. Just like our parents went through it with the Cold War and all that shit. So it's like, this is, it's just, history repeats itself in a way. So we just got to make our way through it and just, try and be kind to each other and just give each other a little bit more grace.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's all good stuff. So again, thank you, Shawn Coss, for being on and chatting with me today. Yeah, we'll keep everybody posted on upcoming things. So again, take care, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Terminal Addiction Podcast. And I am going to
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of any affiliated organization. This content is for informational purposes only and is not intended for professional advice. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Until next time.